Great to have you all back to the Aruba Investment Summit 2021. I hope you were able to stretch your legs, grab a cup of coffee, and get to know some interesting people or organizations. At this moment, we will have two speakers, and after their presentations, we will be hosting a joint Q&A session. So I would like to invite you again to write your questions in the Q&A section of the chat box. First up, I would like to welcome Mr. Erik Mijts, who will be talking about sustainable island solutions. Erik Mijts is a researcher, educator, and manager at the University of Aruba with a keen interest in program design for sustainable development in small islands. He is a co-founder and coordinator of the Sustainable Island Solutions through Science, Technology, Engineering, and Mathematics, the SISSTEM project cluster. He is also a co-founder and coordinator of the Academic Foundation Year and facilitates and initiates international students' research exchange programs. Please welcome Erik Mijts.
Thank you so much for that kind introduction, and it is an honor to be here at the Aruba Investment Summit and to be part of this think tank today in which we try to find new pathways for creating wealth in Aruba. As indicated, indeed, I'm the coordinator of SISSTEM, Sustainable Island Solutions through Science, Technology, Engineering and Mathematics, a program that has been developed at the University of Aruba in close collaboration with our strategic partner, the KU Leuven, and funded by the European Union. Of course, with the support of the government of Aruba and also supported by the UNDP in the implementation of the practical side of the project. Now, I am going to take you on a journey through pathways to creating a knowledge-based economy and the role that the University of Aruba has to play in that pathway. Because if you want to create a knowledge-based economy, you don't only need a favorable economic regime, funding and an information infrastructure, but you also need well-educated people and a HR infrastructure that supports the knowledge-based economy, as well as an innovation system, a system of critical academics and critical thinkers that support innovation and that support sustainable development. Now, before I go on and tell you more about SISSTEM in itself and the backgrounds in itself, I just need to tell you more about actually challenges for sustainable development in small island states and the way in which the University of Aruba, as a knowledge institute in Aruba, wants to address those. Small island states are well known to us all, and we don't have to go into the traditional challenges of scale, of isolation, of limited resources, etc. But of course, we have all endeavored on achieving these sustainable development goals as small island states because we are the litmus test of sustainable development. Now, in doing so, there are quite some challenges for research. And you know, you're looking at an academic. I'm not an investor. I'm not somebody who is really a business person. And I'm very well aware that one of the challenges for research in small island states is that research is usually coming up with academic solutions, and the applicability of it is often not really seen as something that works in the business community. That is the first thing that I want to emphasize, that is something that we want to do differently at SISSTEM. Second is, of course, the fear that you have some kind of ready-made solutions that have been presented for continental and first world countries that do not fit the size of those small island states. Consecutively, we have the issue of scale. The place is limited, of course, space is limited, but also human power is limited. And the other thing that is a challenge for research in small island states is that we sometimes forget to understand the value of local expertise and the value of what local experts can bring to the table as they have seen and worked with the challenges for the business sector in the island itself. Now, the University of Aruba actually offers a number of education programs that are not science and technology related, such as the law faculty, the finance and management faculty, the hospitality and tourism management studies, as well as the governance studies. And next to that, now we are working on that SISSTEM program, where we offer STEM. In doing so, we take into account the value of cultural understanding, intercultural communication and perception, and multidisciplinary skills. And I'll tell you a little bit more about that in a second. SISSTEM in itself consists of 4 different pillars. First of all, there's a Bachelor of Science in Sustainable Engineering with 3 different specializations that I'll explain to you later on. Second, starting 2022, we will begin with a Master of Science in Sustainable Development in Small Island States. Third, we are developing a research institute for sustainable development in small island states, and currently we already have 8 PhD candidates working on research projects for applied research outputs that can be implemented in order to at least mitigate and address challenges that we are currently facing. Finally, we are working on the establishment of a sustainable small island states repository, dissemination and outreach center that will also be providing services to the business community and to the government through consultancy and alike. As I said, the project partners, they are well known to you, but they are less interesting than the goals of the SISSTEM program. The SISSTEM program, so first of all, wants to develop education in STEM as increased UA program options. UA is University of Aruba, and we want to make sure that we are able to deliver well-trained bachelors of science and later on masters of science that have an additional value to our economy. Now, at this moment, we started in 2019, so we're in the 2nd year of the development of that bachelor program, and soon the students will start, the first cohort of students will start in their 3rd year, and we will expect in the future to be able to deliver about 15 up to 20 trained bachelors of science to the labor market. That's number 1. Number 2 is that we want to create a STEM knowledge base. People with highly trained expertise in science and technology, mainly with a PhD background or with at least a master's background that really independently can develop solutions for innovation in Aruba. Third is, of course, the development of research capacity and products. So using that STEM knowledge base, developing consultancy outputs and developing research outputs that can be implemented in our society. And of course also STEM services like lab research and lab analysis for society and industry. In doing so, we contribute to the positioning of the University of Aruba as an academic stakeholder in the Caribbean, and we expand the network not only for the University of Aruba, but also for our island state. We contribute to the government of Aruba's education, research and innovation policy in doing so. And of course, we contribute to the global achievement of sustainable development in small island states. Now, I told you about the bachelor program, and I'm going to ask you to follow this one. It's a little bit abstract, but it's nice to know. The program is a 3-year program that is called Bachelor of Science in Sustainable Engineering, and we have 3 specializations. The first specialization is Bioenvironmental Sciences, the second is Informatics and Data Sciences, and the third one is Technology and Engineering. All 3 of these programs have a common basis, 90 credits or 1.5 years of study in which the students get a solid foundation in understanding sciences and also the application of sciences in the field. For example, the students will follow courses like chemistry, biology, physics, information sciences, and environmental science. But at the same time, they will be exposed to real-life client-consultant interactions, like, for example, what was referred to in the previous presentation by the Airport of Aruba, that we did a consult for the Airport of Aruba when it comes to sustainability activities and sustainable development at Aruba Airport Authority. And in such a way, the students are really delivering a first product that can be implemented, and it was well received, by the way. So after that 90 credit common basis, students go on to one of the 3 specializations in which they follow half a year of specialization courses. Then they go abroad to our strategic partner at this moment, to the Catholic University of Leuven, where they work for half a year in an international lab environment in order to gain international experience and international opportunities, but also to learn that the quality standards that we adhere to at the University of Aruba also have a universal quality. After that international exchange phase, students come back to Aruba and they work with local partners like the airport, but also like the marine barracks, the water and electricity plant, innovation centers, etc., in order to work on their thesis product. And simultaneously, they'll be working together with an international exchange group of students that come to Aruba in order to further hone their skills in multidisciplinary international collaboration. As you can hear, I focus a lot on collaboration and multidisciplinary because it is our strong belief that in Aruba we do need specialized knowledge, but with the understanding and the capacity to collaborate with other fields and in an international network, rather than only trying to develop the solutions from the inside perspective alone. These three specializations, as you can see, students that come out of those programs, they can either be seen as sustainability consultants for larger companies and larger organizations, also for governmental sectors. But at the same time, you can imagine that the students that come out of the informatics and data sciences program can be contributing to the digitalization of the government of Aruba, as well as to the data need that currently exists within the private sector of Aruba. Technology and engineering is mainly geared towards sustainable energy, sustainable production, sustainable solutions, and sustainable building solutions. And these students will, of course, be more likely to be placed in organizations where they contribute to engineering projects and to building projects in order to improve innovation and sustainability of these projects. That's the 3-year bachelor. After the bachelor, in 2022, we will start with a half-time program, which is a multidisciplinary Master of Science in Sustainable Engineering, which is called Island Solutions. And yet again, you see that we focus on collaboration and in an attempt to try to solve what we call wicked problems in small island states, problems that actually do not have a yes-no solution or a black and white solution, but really involve different partnerships with stakeholders on the ground, with the community, but also with the government. And in this kind of challenges, it is very important for us to have the commitment of our stakeholders within the Aruban society, our partners here. And I will soon introduce to you a couple of the partners that we are currently working with towards creating a success for that Master of Science. And then we have the PhD projects. The PhD projects, at this moment we have 8 students doing a sandwich PhD, and that is a sandwich PhD in which they are a PhD candidate at the KU Leuven, and at the same time they're employed by the University of Aruba. And the projects are varying wildly, but I hope that from an investment point of view, you can realize that these projects can also have a value in the future, not only as a research output, but also as the basis for new entrepreneurial solutions, entrepreneurial opportunities. If you look, for example, at a project like the analysis of urban metabolism in small island states, you really look at urban planning and planning of city development, of urban development, which of course is a very important factor when we look at the livability of the regional development plans that we are developing. Second is about sustainable waste, the development of an optimized sustainable waste management system for Aruba, in which one of our candidates at this moment is really looking at developing a model for the assessment of values for the waste that we have, and the way in which we can create commercial solutions that address the waste problems that we have. a way more biology and ecology-oriented project, but important for our tourism industry is the project into the health and the population structure and genetic connectivity of reef-building corals in the southern Dutch Caribbean. Of course, less of an immediate entrepreneurial value, but in the long run, those corals are one of the things that actually bring the tourists to Aruba. The fourth project is really looking into the way in which you can develop entrepreneurship solutions through education and engineering in Aruba. So that's really creating models of startup companies that can form projects within incubators in Aruba to develop small-scale startups that will, as far as I am informed at this moment, be starting as of 2023 within the University of Aruba, and also outside, of course. Fifth project is aimed at sustainable agriculture in small island states, is a project on vertical farming, indoor vertical farming, where the amount of water used is limited strongly, whereas, of course, the electricity use goes up. And looking for an ideal model within our small island states. Sixth project is really looking into the governance of small insular socio-ecological systems. This is really for the healthy economic climate that the government can create. Seventh project is looking into wastewater and the reverse osmosis potential as a sustainable source. So that's a very chemical and technical project. And finally, we have a project going on the life cycle analysis for a more sustainable food chain in Aruba. These are 8 examples of projects because currently, we are developing, at this moment, 3 more projects, and we aim to attract throughout the years new projects that can all develop potential for sustainability economy in Aruba. And then I told you about a research and outreach center. And actually on the right of this slide, you see the Maria Convent, which is an old monastery that is next to the current buildings of the University of Aruba. And it has been made available to the SISSTEM project by the government of Aruba in order to be refurbished. And it is being hoped that actually during this year, the remodeling of the building is starting, also with EU money, and the establishment of the labs is being done. So, and speaking about labs, that's one thing, of course, that is really where you're saying that we're going to develop research projects that are products that can help quality control and sustainability in Aruba. But we're also setting up a digital platform that brings together information, case studies, etc., on innovation and entrepreneurship in Aruba. We are developing a newsletter that is being sent out every 6 months. We're developing training opportunities, and only last Saturday a first training took place at the University of Aruba, which was geared towards data visualization and data sciences, and was delivered by one of our colleagues from Merrimack College, who gave a very successful training. We're also creating a data repository, so an access point for the development of a database that is accessible to the public as well as, of course, to the private sector. A portal for network building and maintenance, as well as a portal for technical assistance and a portal for research contextualization. That last one is very important for us because at this moment, we are seeing that many projects are being set up, but they are not really successful for the Aruban community because the data that is created is actually disseminated in Europe or in the US, in academic journals or in publications over there, whereas we're also looking for potentials to bring that research within the Aruban community and to make it a shared experience for the Aruban citizen. Then, we are building towards that network. And as I told you, we have a number of partnerships already, and I'm going to give a couple of examples here. where the SISSTEM project within that local network is developing its expertise. Together with the Chamber of Commerce, for example, we have participated in the COSME incubator project, in which the Chamber of Commerce was looking for a potential to develop business incubators in Aruba and to create a new entrepreneurial climate for startups. As I told you, that is one of the goals of the University of Aruba SISSTEM program. A second collaborator is, of course, the water and electricity company of Aruba, in which we have collaborated in the energy think tank of Aruba, and where we are thinking together and working together towards sustainable energy solutions. Directorate of Nature and Environment is an important partner for the Institute, as we are working together on the development of nature protection where possible, and especially the balance with environmental interests. You're seeing the logo of the Dutch Marine Corps, who have a barracks in Aruba, and only recently we have started a collaboration. So we have had a collaboration with the Marines barracks since the startup of the SISSTEM project, but only recently we have started a collaboration together with the Smart Lab field-based project, which is actually a project of the Dutch Defense Ministry, where they are trying to set up sustainable field bases across the world. And in Aruba, there will be a pilot project for that. And the SISSTEM program is a partner in that development in order to make sure that in Aruba we get the most sustainable solutions, and that we can also demonstrate that even on the small scale of a 200 people, 300 people Marines barracks base, you can create sustainable solutions that can be extrapolated to the whole Aruban community. Next, we work together with Parque Arikok Aruba, which is a partnership in the development, of course, not only in nature conservation efforts, but also in, for example, a reforestation effort that is taking place currently, and the assessment of the effectivity of marine parks, which is then, well, again, being done together with one of our international partners. With the airport of Aruba, we are working on the energy assessment of the buildings, of the built environment of the airport, and that is a student project. At the same time, the project that was introduced by the CEO of the airport in his previous talk, which is the electric flying project, is also a project that our students will partner in their third year. And actually, one of our students was, who also works at the airport, was part of the ABCU Later project, which won a Kingdom Award on innovation through electric flying. Santa Rosa is the Department of Agriculture and Agriculture, Husbandry and Fisheries. And at this moment, we have a collaboration with them in the establishment of a vertical farm lab on the grounds of their territories, of their terrains. And finally, of course, we regularly work with the Department of Economic Affairs, Commerce and Industry of Aruba, as they are the main driver behind the government side of the setup of the SISSTEM program, for which we are always grateful, of course. So, as you can see, we are starting to develop this national platform. And one of the goals that we have and that we have set together with a number of these stakeholders is that as of the second half of 2021, we will begin to develop think tank exercises together with these different partnerships on collaboration for innovation in Aruba and the way in which we can create new initiatives to further support each other in innovation and sustainable development. I'm almost there, don't worry. We also have international partnerships that we are developing at this moment, and here I'm showing a couple of them, apart from the international partners that are really part of the establishment of SISSTEM, including the KU Leuven partner and UNDP, and of course the EU. We also work together in a couple of international think tanks. And I just want to mention a few here. One is that we're a partner in the United Nations Sustainable Development Solutions Network, a United Nations effort to really collaborate across the world in university partnerships and research partnerships on sustainable development. And that is a global initiative of the United Nations. Apart from that, we are part of the Metabolism of Cities network and the Metabolism of Islands network, two twinning projects that look at cities and islands as if they are really living organisms with the needs of living organisms, and that actually have to process materials flows as a human metabolism. And those think tanks really lead to inspiration not only for the development of research projects, but also the development of entrepreneurial projects, because these are really inspiration networks where people from different island states discuss potentials and discuss solutions and opportunities that are popping up on those sites. This is also connected to the island studies chairs that are in Canada at the University of Prince Edward Island and in Malta, but that leads too far. I'm not going to bother us with that. We also work together, for example, with Oregon State University, the Hatfield Marine Sciences Center, the University of Curaçao, Wageningen University of Research, the University of the West Indies, and a very interesting partner is the Institute for Biodiversity, Ecology and Development at the University of Amsterdam and the Global Resilience Research Institute of Northeastern University in Boston. Finally, of course, our neighboring island, Curaçao, hosts the Marine Research Station, Carmabi, and we're also partnering with that. Now, why have I been telling you all this? Actually, because of this. This was the image that I showed you at the beginning of my contribution here. And I told you that in order to create a knowledge-based economy, you need to have, of course, that economic regime and that information infrastructure, but you definitely need education and human resources. And I hope that I have demonstrated that through the establishment of the SISSTEM program at the University of Aruba, we are developing an education output that actually meets the needs of the 21st century and that creates a critical workforce that can contribute to either the support of the establishment of companies, but also can be really an investment opportunity for investors that really want to set up new startups or want to foster new startups within that new entrepreneurial climate for Aruba. Because those new bachelors and masters of science, as well as the PhDs, will be part of an innovation system that is embedded within a local and international framework of collaborations, where they will be able to find solutions and multidisciplinary collaborations within their networks in order to solve the challenges that they face when they are building the knowledge-based economy for Aruba. So that is actually the contribution that we want to make with SISSTEM, Sustainable Island Solutions, through science, technology, engineering and mathematics. And I always have to say this line, SISSTEM is funded by the European Union because they are the funding partner for the startup of SISSTEM. And if you want to reach out to us, please do so. The email address is very simple. It says stem@ua.aw. Thank you so much for listening to me.
Thank you, Mr. Erik Mijts. That was a very insightful presentation, and I look forward to the Q&A section in a bit. So, Erik, thank you for your presentation. It was really nice, and as I was saying, that it made me emotional that to see the new programs that you have in technology and science, data science, as I previously quit my job to go do a traineeship in data science in the Netherlands. I'm back now, of course, in Aruba. But it would have been nice to have the possibility as well to do something here. So one of my questions to you is, what is the possibility for someone who already has a bachelor's or someone who is working to also partake in these programs and further their career?
Thank you for that question. And as I also said earlier, like it's such a pity that people have to leave Aruba in order to gain access to higher education opportunities. So we are very happy that we can actually offer it now on the bachelor level to start with, of course, of free specializations. But beyond that, for the master's program, we really want to tap into the potential for people that have obtained a bachelor's degree to really achieve a master's degree through our programs. And we will be offering the program half-time, so that it's possible for people that have a working commitment to actually participate, complete their degree, get their Masters of Science. And we're not only doing it half-time, but we're also going to do the education parts in chunks where you do not have to make the commitment to continuously go to class every week, etc., which does not work in combination with a full-time job. So we really want to offer that as a possibility. That's the first one. The second one that we really want to offer is that the courses that, for example, the one that was started on Saturday is a course that is offered by Professor Fotios Kokotos of Merrimack College in Boston. And he will be regularly coming to Aruba in order to supply that course to the Aruban business and public society. And those will be certificate courses. Part of the courses that we are teaching at SISSTEM itself, also in the master, will also be offered to the public as where people can participate and be part of it. So slowly we are developing an expansion of services to the private and public sectors actually by doing so, creating more opportunities and more diversity.
Yeah, that's very nice to hear because these new skills, especially in data analytics, is also almost becoming very essential in every job. It doesn't matter if you're in finance or whatever field you're working in, to be a little bit literate with data and becoming more data driven in your organizations is so vital. And it would be nice if everyone who's already doing something can also profit from this knowledge that you're offering. We also saw that you have about eight PhD students, and I was very impressed. That's quite a lot, I think, for Aruba to have right now. One question I had was how are they funded, and how is there an opportunity maybe for foreign investors to say like, hey, we want to fund projects in Aruba?
Correct. 8 is a lot in Aruba, and the way we're seeing it at this moment, it will become more. And the way we can do it is not because we think that we can do this on our own, but because we do this together with our network partners. So one of the things that I do most of my day is really making sure that those partnerships are not only established, but are also fostered so that they keep on building. Now, the opportunities that we create for international investors is really geared towards the fact that because we have those academic partnerships, we can fund PhD candidates through external funding and make sure that the right quality and the right quality commitment is given by our partnerships. So our current PhD candidates, for example, do their PhD at the KU Leuven, which is an internationally renowned institute. But you can imagine that they would also be doing their projects with University of South Carolina, one of the University of Aruba partners that I didn't mention, but which is a potential pathway, through that Global Resilience Research Network, through other partnerships, for example, with Oregon State University. And so in that way, on the one hand, we create that guarantee of quality, the input of an international network, while at the same time contextualizing it over here because the people work from within Aruba. And so our group of HPHD candidates now, they spend about 9 months a year in Aruba to do their research from within this community. And then they spend 3 months a year at the KU Leuven in order to work with the teams over there. So they combine those insights and they build on that expertise.
Well, it's very interesting and I think very nice for them as well. They also get this international experience and also maintain the feeling that you are working for your island as well, which is something that a lot of, at least I know my friends are very passionate about to give back to Aruba. How how would you say that we can advance research and development in Aruba in general using the system faculty?
I think the answer to that question lies in your previous question, and that is that we need to further start understanding that on the one hand we should not be aiming towards finding solutions where we can have an isolated solution within Aruba. The solutions lie in networks, multidisciplinary collaboration, and also understanding that research needs funding. So I know that these are bad times to ask the government for money, but structural research funding is an important way to drive the economy, and that structural research funding should partly come from the private sector. I'm 100% convinced of that, but should also come from the government while still maintaining the integrity, the academic freedom, so that we are not being so that we can remain sharp and critical. And when we can do that, I'm 100% convinced that in close collaboration we can develop way more solutions and way more pathways for change and opportunities for startups and entrepreneurship than we are doing at this moment. So economic diversification is an important part of that.
Yeah, because I also know in all models to talk about how to create an innovative small islands, as you well said, that education is very important. And I think, like you say, the private sector plays an important role in funding that human capital, but then they can also regain that knowledge back for themselves. Is there something that we can do, or is that going very well with the private sector here, or do you say that we need them to be more involved or understand the value of using students as well in their organizations?
I think, and I've been working with the University of Aruba for 21 years now, and our collaboration with the private sector has always been very positive. When it comes to traineeships, when it comes to study projects for students. So I think that we should further keep on embracing those opportunities. But we have, of course, thus far always focused on students at bachelor and master's level that are doing research. And now we're really transitioning into expanding those opportunities into PhD projects and larger scale research projects. That, of course, creates a new need and asks for a new dialogue with the private sector and the public sector. And that is also why we're looking into creating that platform for sustainability, which is called the triple helix model. That's private, public and academic partnerships in order to further be successful in that. And I truly believe that when we can create a model in which we understand the importance of collaboration, and at the same time, the importance of what you just mentioned, the value of the Aruban quality to the projects that we create, then we can be very successful.
Right. Well, Erik, I would like to thank you very much for your presence today and all the explanation and all the effort and work that you are doing for the faculty of Aruba. I think it's very admirable, and I'm very happy to see the direction that it's going. It gives me a lot of hope as well. So thank you for that. And we will now try to move on to Mr. Berkenkamp. Do we have him online? All right, as we wait for Mr. Berkenkamp, I would like to remind you all about the roundtable sessions that we have later. The roundtable sessions are aimed so that you can ask your questions to DIP, which is the Department of Infrastructure of Aruba. You can also talk to ARINA, the investment agency of Aruba, to ask all your investment-related questions. We also have the Free Zone of Aruba present today, so you can also see what possibilities lie there for you as an investor. And I think we also have Action Coach Aruba present during the roundtable session, so you can also talk to them. I will also take the time to already remind you about the one-on-one sessions that you can sign up for on Thursday and Friday with ARINA. Don't miss out on this opportunity so that you can learn more about investment opportunities in Aruba and ask all your questions that you might have. All right. Moving on, we can give you a little recap of today. So today we've learned from the Aruba Ports Authority. We've learned about their new project, Aruba Port City. It looks really, really nice, and they are open for investors to be able to create the whole project. So they're doing it in phases, as they have explained, and you can always contact them. It will be a new project. It will be partially residential. There will also be a park, and there will be a new place where Arubans and the tourists can come and mingle, meet each other, which is very nice. And it should also enhance the experience of our capital city, Oranjestad. Also, maybe very important to mention, I've been asking them in the background after the presentation about how are they going to help Oranjestad with parking, because that is a very big problem that we have, or it's a challenge for people when you want to go there. And they're also coming with a solution and many, many new parking spaces. So that is also another way in which they will help enhance businesses around the port area as well. We also heard about the AAA, the Aruba Airport Authority, and their expansion of the airport and how they're going to do it in phases. It was a really good case study to hear how a business had this really large plan, but due to COVID, they managed to adapt and look at what are the critical parts that they wanted to keep for this new project, and so that they can still move on and not have to cancel everything. All right. Moving on, we are going to have a very short break, and we will join you. We hope to see you again in about 2 to 3 minutes. Thank you. So next up, we will have a testimonial by Mr. Martin Berkenkamp. He is a CEO of Advice to Energy, and he will be giving a testimonial on behalf of the German Consortium GreenTech Hub. He is joining us live from Germany today. Mr. Berkenkamp is a German national with more than 20 years of experience in the renewable sector, where he has held different leadership roles at Enron and General Electric in product and market development, government affairs, and strategic marketing. Martin Berkenkamp held various key roles in industry associations as Vice President of Wind Europe and founder and board member of PV-TIN. In September 2015, Martin founded Advice to Energy, a boutique advisory firm bringing investor requirements and project development needs, as well as delivering growth advisory to leading technology companies. Welcome, Mr. Berkenkamp.
Yeah, thank you very much. I'm sorry for that. I guess this gave me some time for a dry run, and also the opportunity to ask you to flip the pages now. Can you show me the first page? Looking at the German Green Technology Hub, and actually what actually is it, and why are we looking at Aruba, and what's actually our view of the future, and especially with that with the situation where the world is in today. I think I wanted to give you a few sentences on actually what the German Green Technology Hub stands for, besides a bunch of complex words batched together, as we love to do this in Germany. We're a consortium, and we're a network of small and medium-sized companies, and we're looking at buildings, we're looking at technology, we're looking at energy, and we're looking at basically projects that we can realize together, where each of the parties can bring value to the table. So, and that's where we look at coding. So everything on the outside, we look at PV system, we look at energy storage solutions, we have small wind turbines in the portfolio. What all houses need is windows and doors. And at the end of the day, what we all need is money. And that is also common Germany has a very good history in providing funding solutions, loans, and project financing. We also have a company working on rubber mats, which is basically a very exciting product used for damping out of old car tires. So all of this is what we call the core of the consortia. This is not a closed shop yet, because we see each other as also a group that helps other companies get into Aruba, get into the Caribbean, because at the end of the day, the customer decides what product he wants, he or she wants, and therefore we understand each other as a gateway towards accessing technology developed and made in Germany. We're very grateful that we actually have been supported all the way from the Dutch German Chamber of Commerce. I think it's probably fair to say without the initiative we wouldn't be here. And we really count on them going forward to continue to help us because this is far away from home. And we're also grateful to have support from the German Federal Ministry of Economic Affairs and Energy. Looking at far away from home, yes, as you can see on the map, this is how we look at the world. And that is basically also describes a little bit of why Aruba is so central and so interesting. But we have a bit more on the next page. Oh, by the way, go to the website ggth.de when you want to see and learn more. I think, why Aruba? I've been saying that a lot. Small and medium-sized companies are really sort of the heart and the backbone of innovation and growth, not only in Germany, not only in Europe, but globally. Where small and medium-sized companies do have, and I really say that from having a background with General Electric for 15 years, which is certainly not an SME, but love to be one in bits and pieces. So I think small and medium-sized companies do bring innovation forward, bring new products to market, and really. Really are innovators. They cannot scale things over fantastic volumes, and therefore they need to also pick their battles. And in that respect, we as a group, we really appreciate reliable partners and a sound and stable business environment. And I think that's exactly what we're finding in Aruba. And it's also due to its location that there is obviously this tie to Europe, as it's Europe or it's not Europe. You can pick what you like, and I think that's exactly what we like. We can basically pick the benefits from both worlds, and in that respect also have that gateway to a very interesting Caribbean and also South and Central American market, if you want to cut it very far. But I think that location is really an asset. You're in the same time zone of a lot of business while you're actually working under a quasi-European environment. So in this respect, it's if people go to Portugal and they're trying to find the most Western part of Europe, they probably still have some way to swim because it's actually Aruba. And now Aruba is an island. We've heard about that yesterday. Island people are lazy. No, that's not. I don't think that was a prejudice from the Middle Ages. So we think islands are good markets, and I said that a bit in the as a as an intro, we love good markets. Huh? Why are islands good markets? Because I think islands are small, and obviously, just for the size of it, the fierce competition which we see in in Central Europe or in North America or in other parts of the world is just not as fierce because it's small. Huh? That's a good thing. Now, small is also a second good thing because small means everybody knows everybody, which is basically you cannot miss, and that's a challenge, and that's a cradle which we'd love to operate in. We're not here to miss. Huh? So in that respect, we'd love to deliver quality and basically customer satisfaction. That's a good thing. So if you can prove that, you win a market and you win very good business. And so these are sort of the three things which made us choose Aruba as a place to build up our most Western, so to speak, hub. And I think when we go one page further, which is almost the last page, we look at a bit of what we actually think is happening in this world and basically what's next. And I think we've learned so many things in this Corona pandemic, and people are actually tend to be extremely negative about pandemics, but when we go one step back and look at what actually sort of the behavioral changes and what does that mean for all of us, we don't see these 6 cities in 5 days trips, waking up in a different hotel every morning, and actually being quite surprised that nobody is delivering the breakfast to your door when you're at home. So I think online is so much more efficient. We've learned that. We also see that this resided also with global talent and global workmanship. You can get global resources at a click. And by the way, these global resources appreciate this work-life balance a lot more because we've actually shown to them that it works. And digital works. I've talked to quite a number of executives who are extremely amazed that they don't have to go to the London office every Monday to Wednesday, and still things are working. So they can do that from home. And I think that's. I'm not saying everything works from home, but I think it's gonna be extremely difficult to turn back some of these developments, and people are actually demanding it. So what does that mean? Besides that, I tell you what I think about the world is that small and medium-sized companies as we are, we need the best people. And we need to compete for them in a tougher and tougher environment. I think it's what Eric said. How can we get people to stay in places where they're born and raised? I think digital is one way, and we think that this is actually something offering benefits of a small and medium-sized company that actually we hope also to accomplish with a further growth in an Aruban office or in an Aruban setup, on an assembly, on services, or on a location that is actually providing work-life balance at a plus, because I've not come across anybody in our group here that basically said, "Oh no, let's not go to Aruba this year because it's just such a brilliant place to over here." So I think you do have some extremely nice pieces, and that office on the beach picture is quite sticky. Now, maybe as a last, and because I said it's also what's next, that also I always want to end up with a little wish here, making things a little easier. Just to and I mentioned that sort of very simple Regis type setup where you basically you rent a space, you have your infrastructure, and you have your one-stop shop on administrations and items and stuff that you just have to do when you register a company, when you register people, work permits, blah blah blah. So I think once we get that first reaches center on the beach at Nord or wherever, this is going to be this is going to be a very very much helpful tool, not only for our group but also talking about what Eric said, getting some more knowledge based economy, getting the knowledge based economy started, and people can work everywhere. That's what we learned, and they're going to require it, and they request it. From employers, and I think Aruba can certainly make a difference there. And I think with that, again, sorry for the poor quality of the audio. Maybe it's always a problem here in Germany, given that's why we actually want to move to Aruba, because I heard there's a better network connectivity there. So thank you very much, and really look forward seeing you, and then always, besides having all said everything about digital, also feeling and seeing you back in Aruba. Many thanks.
Yes, thank you so much, Martin Berkenkamp, and also thank you for hanging in there with us today. Now I would like to move to ask you a few questions. We're a little bit far away from each other, but hopefully this will work fine. Can you tell us about what has been your best experience so far working with Aruba and getting to set up this consortium?
Well, I think best experience, we've had a few, I would say, we had a few business trips to Aruba, and we actually did our last one in March, right in the middle, sort of in the heat of the pandemic, and we actually came home with a couple of deals in the back, and which actually accelerated our our desire to set up structures and to really come to terms and really work on the organizational framework, that we can actually work as a consortia together. Also, there's some internal stuff that we have to sort of find out amongst each other. How do we organize things, etc. And I think this was not expected. And I think we've always been making plans sort of how do we build up and grow that opportunity, and how do we actually be more present with all the difficulties which we have in the moment. So that was actually our very, very promising start.
Oh, that's very great to hear that things have moved faster than you have expected. And you say that there are some difficult things that are going on. What would you say are the biggest challenges in your current venture right now?
I think current venture is biggest challenges is always it's that we allocate the right people and the right time to organize things here at home. I think there's a few things that we have to that have to be done. Because there's a few bigger companies, a few smaller companies. So I think it's basically our homework, and then in order to come out with a solution and with an offering to the market that is actually worth making it. And I think we're also asking ourselves, hey, should we set up a local company? How do we do this? Sort of some very operational steps, which are, I think, challenging us. It's not really a challenge, I have to say. And I think what is a bit let's be frank. I think travel restrictions are somewhat not the nicest thing to do, huh? Because if you we used to have very strict Corona rules over here, and that has been quite challenging. But everybody else is facing the same problems. So this is something we're able to deal with. So not really a challenge.
Oh, all right. Yeah, no, I hear what you're saying. Of course, there is a lot to do, and you have to set up everything, and to come up with a good how do you say, something that's sellable. So to think about that, I want to ask a question about financing. So actually, how does the German Consortium GreenTech Hub does its financing? You working with partners in Aruba? Is it from Germany, or how can people who are interested also participate maybe in this consortium?
No, very much. I think we're working on the financing side. We're very open for everything. I think there's certain bits and pieces where I think German funding or loans or project financing is quite competitive, and there are certain areas where it's not. And I think we do have to look at this specifically, and we're obviously very keen to work with local financiers, with the local banks, and really don't leave anybody out who wants to be a part of it just because it's he is not German, he or she is not German. That has actually nothing to do with it. It's just sort of we can facilitate things, and I think that facilitation is probably the most important piece in that whole project setup. Once project gets a little bigger, then when we're talking about a couple of millions, then international finance is a bit more interested and a bit more competitive. But we really love to work with local companies and local. We even require local support in our. Because we don't have an installation group, we don't have a services group, and we don't have an assembly group for the products and services that we sell. So we're really open to work with the local teams on the ground.
All right, that's great to hear. And I guess my follow-up question on that would be, at what stage or how can people reach out to you, or how would they find out when they can participate financially in this project? Or are you at that phase already, or what do you have to do to get there?
I think currently we're at a smaller project scale where we're doing a few demos. And we're making sure that actually we also understand sort of the rules and of the market and the product requirements, and so we're sort of fine tuning that, and that's what we use, and that's what we use the first projects for, which I think are in that respect showcases. We initially talked about sort of a German house, so to speak, sort of a showcase house, or but some kind of a showcase. I think that's and once we have that, I think then we very much invite everybody to come in, talk to us, participate. We've set up a website. It's the ggth.de. There is contact people on there. It's not an unmonitored mailbox. It's really that's we really love. We really do this to accelerate our presence and be more engaged in the community. And I think we've already been making plans for the for summer that we have another group of people coming over. So that personal dialogue to start things is what we see is very essential in the first phase, and that's on track, I'd say.
Oh, okay. Thank you so much, Mr. Martin Berkenkamp. I very much look forward to seeing this project develop and see what everything that it can become. And thank you once again for being with us today. I would like to move on to introduce our last speaker of the day. I would like to introduce Mr. Jan Westra, who will be talking to us about the opportunities of investing in innovative agriculture technologies in island economies. He is joining us live from the Netherlands. Same as before, you can submit your questions to Mr. Westra in the Q&A section of the chat box, as we will have a small Q&A session at the end of his presentation. Jan Westra is a strategic business developer at Priva. He graduated with a Master's of Science at the TU Delft in 1985, the Faculty of Mechanical Engineering, Department of Refrigeration and Indoor Climate Control. Subsequently, he did a PhD research at the same department, culminating in a thesis in 1990 on the topic Development of an Advanced Absorption Heat Transformer. After TU Delft, Jan Westra worked for more than 5 years at an HVAC consultancy firm in Rotterdam. In 1996, Westra joined the Priva company, partly for the development of equipment for water treatment for greenhouses, partly for directing research projects with universities and colleges. Examples: University of Ghent, KU Leuven, Wageningen UR, University of Twente, and TU Delft. Jan Westra is a specialist in the field of urban agriculture or vertical farming, where the horticulture and building worlds come together. On behalf of Priva, he is involved in many initiatives in this field worldwide. Last few years, his focus is on Europe, USA, and Canada, and also connecting to research institutes and universities. Jan is a member of the board of the Netherlands-Canada Chamber of Commerce, the advisory board of the TU Delft Agriculture Institute, as well as the executive board of the PIP program by FFAR in the USA. And he is a speaker at several conventions. Please welcome Mr. Jan Westra.
Hello, well, good morning, bon dia. I will try to share my screen with you. It's the end of the day in the Netherlands, and we had quite an exciting day because my youngest son graduated today of TU Delft, actually, which is quite an achievement, I must say. So I will go to share my presentation, and we'll work my way from there. So there we go. If things are not right, I will get a call. Thank you very much for joining me at the end of this morning, for you at least, I think. Yeah, it is. And yeah, my request was, well, I got a question from the Aruba House in The Hague. Can you tell something about opportunities of investing in innovative agriculture technologies in island economies? And it's with a lot of these things, one eye is king. So, well, this is me on Aruba. My friend Diego Acevedo took the picture when I was there about 5-6 years ago, first time for just a day. Well, I already told you TU Delft, business development in horticulture, vertical farming, and I'm looking for new technologies and all types of advanced research. From that end, I visited Aruba several times for different conferences that were there on options for having food on the island and see how we can forward food production that was way before COVID-19 hit the world, so to say. I'm working for Priva. This is the one slide because they pay my salary. We are a family-owned company with about 500 plus employees, with 120 people working in product development. We are worldwide active through dealerships, through branch offices like in the US, Canada, Mexico, but also headquarters in the Netherlands, of course. What we do is we design and sell hardware for climate control, process control in buildings and in greenhouses, the software that comes with that, and also all the services and consulting, training and support. And we do that, as I said, for horticulture, greenhouses in all types of ways, open field when it's grown on gutters. We do that for utility buildings, mainly in Europe, And we are getting quite a foothold, or having quite a foothold in indoor growing, where we combine heating, ventilation, air conditioning, HVAC, with our knowledge of the greenhouse industry. Well, this is our Dutch office. That's where I am some days in the week working, and we have a lot of people working here, as you can see, trying and doing innovations in all type of technologies. Well, this is the neighborhood. National Geographic had quite an item several years ago on my neighborhoods, and the arrow is where I'm sitting at the moment, where I'm living now. Only it's not dark yet, it's summer, and we could go to the beach. Well, looking forward to what's going on in food production in terms of greenhouses. And Priva being established in '59, this is sort of where the market started in the Netherlands for us. And then gradually we saw Dutch growers emigrate and taking knowledge with them, but also, of course, a lot of other companies, other countries took over the technologies and adapted that to their specific situations, like in Australia, France, Portugal. Well, we jumped the big ocean about 32 years ago, I think, that Priva started an office in Canada, serving the North American market. Later on, we moved to Mexico as well. And as of 4 years ago, we started a small office in California. So we have offices in all three all three countries of the continent from that end, but also in China and in Australia. I have colleagues who do their work. So you see the interest in controlled environmental agriculture is expanding rapidly, actually, for several reasons, where I will come into now. So what we see is there's an increased demand for controlled environmental agriculture, as you can see. There's actually, and already Erik Mijts mentioned, there's a global lack of technically skilled staff, growers, people who know how to implement technology and biology in one operation, make it work. What we also see, and that's not related to small island states, but to our customers in other, in the US, Canada, we see a scaling and bureaucratization of end customers. So bigger operations, up to 70 hectares, investment companies coming in and have all different types of work compared to and demands compared to a family-owned growing facility. We see, of course, fast technological developments and lots of industry dynamics. I'll come to that later. And on top of that, for smaller island nations, and some things are already covered, of course, limited resources. It has to be shipped in, it has to be flown in, shipped out, flown out. Easy disruption of supply lines, but first weather and politics. I remember Venezuela cut short the food supply to Curacao when I was there, and that's quite an issue. It goes for food, for materials, for consumables, but also for the workforce and support. And on top of that, there's pressure on the use of land. The industry, living and working areas, but also tourism. You want pristine parts of the island where you can show people and have tourists going around on horseback and whatever, like you saw in the movie yesterday. But also utilities like the web on Aruba need their land use, and of course food. Well, some pictures of the adverse weather. That was not the last time I visited Aruba, but we had quite an issue. So I could find a 4-wheel drive that drove me to the airport, and these are some pictures I took from the car. Well, a changing world will create a bigger demand for food. And our observations are it has to be more and more produced locally, safe, fresh, as sustainable as possible. And therefore, we need to change the way we produce our food, either in big operations like this one, or in smaller operations on other sites. And what we saw, and one conclusion we had, is that the market is there. So we did a market research on Curacao for a greenhouse operation we intended to do there. And we found out that, well, it's very hard to find tomatoes for a reasonable price. As you can see, good quality shelves of supermarkets are sometimes empty and suppliers are not able to deliver. So when the jumbo jets stop flying, the bellies don't carry fresh food sometimes. So the market is there, especially with cruise ships start harboring in Aruba again, and maybe the container terminal is expanded like the plans were when I heard once. And on the other hand, so it's the market, but there's also quite a demand for resilience and local for local. So on one end, high demand of fresh foods for both locals and tourists. Fresh food flown in, shipped in, it has several issues, like you see on the poster of one of our customers, 80 Acre Farms. They say, 50 miles, within 50 miles, you've got your food within one day. But when it comes all the way from Colombia, like you see on the right-hand side, it loses 1/3 of nutrient content. It loses 70% of the vitamin. And there's a lot of waste and disruption of the cold chain. So a lot of the food that you eat does not have the nutritional value you need, and half of the food is simply thrown away because it's wasted shrink. It's called in a neat term. Of course, you want transparency of the food chain. Where does it come from, and how can we trace it when things go wrong? Of course, staple foods, rice, not so much potatoes maybe, but they can easily be stored, but fresh foods deteriorates quick. And so resilience, local for local, can cover part of the vulnerability for external issues. The same goes for the United States, of course, like you see on the bottom end of this poster. So I took 2 pictures of the poster. I didn't cover it all. But lettuce travels 2,000 miles from Salinas, California to Cincinnati, Ohio. So you can imagine that that has to do with nutrient content loss and so on. Well, if you want to grow food, there are several items you must take into account. Energy, and from our Dutch end, it's heating, but it also can be done by combined heat and power, heat exchange, climate. The climate inside a greenhouse, inside a growing facility, either greenhouse or indoor, completely. Labor, light, so LEDs, combinations, the effects. Water, and that's quite an issue. So it can be either recycled, rainwater collected, sewage water that you can clean in a certain way and use it again, but also how to grow the systems and what's the market. But on top of that, and I'm glad there was already quite a talk on the SISSTEM, we heavily believe that education is key in this, because looking at what a grower has to deal with in a normal greenhouse, this is where a grower has to deal with. Either a boiler on the left-hand side or a chiller, pet and fan systems, heating systems in the greenhouse, irrigation, temperature control, relative humidity, air movement, light, ventilation. And then on top of that, there's an outdoor weather that messes up everything. And then you want to have your water and fertilizer dosing. Before digging into this, capacity building and knowledge transfer is very important to tell people what to do. Then, of course, we must take climate specifics into account. I remember visiting a greenhouse in Chicago, and they had a cooling system that would only work there for 3-4 days a year. And for the rest of the time, it was just a worthless option, so to say. Research into growing options, where Santa Rosa is already working on, I heard. And of course, adapted technologies and buffers for heat, for cold, for water that you can use in all types. So like capacity and knowledge transfer, it's already said for a while. There are different levels. So we have a university level, academic level for how to move forward, how to come to new innovations. Polytechnic, vocational, Bachelor of Science level of training, but also e-learning. And what we heavily believe in as well is a hands-on training to tell the grower what to do and what a crop looks like and how you can deal with that. So there are different ways of transferring the knowledge, which also are quite easily adaptable to Aruba, I think. And part of the knowledge, part of the technology can be taken over by technology. We have data-driven growing, like UNU can show the pictures and give you a complete map and a growth map of what your lettuce is doing. We're looking in model-driven, data-driven, hybrid systems between model, a plant model, and data-driven. We look for robotics, and especially for distributed growing facilities, I think growing as a service is quite an option. I'll come to that later on, otherwise in the Q&A. And what we see is that the amount of growers is scarce. So if we can multiply their reach by technology, so they can focus on what they're good at instead of doing the bread and butter work for taking care of things that other people can do as well. We believe in grower empowerment, that we give him or her the tools to make it work. And while looking at Aruba, it's not just a one-on-one copy of what's going on in the Netherlands or in the United States, in Canada for that matter. It's in the tropics, so we have to take care that the water on the island is expensive water, it's reverse osmosis. And how can we reuse the water? How can we have the smartest climate and energy control? And what's something that people from the Netherlands quite easily overlook, it's a constant day-night rhythm within the tropics of Cancer and Capricorn. So it changes maybe 5 to 10 minutes, that the sun rises at 6 and gets down at 6 p.m. again. And that's a challenge, an opportunity as well in breeding. So 12 hours light instead of where I live now, we have say 16 hours of daylight to grow food. Of course, there are options for indoor growing. And in that case, I can tell you energy is key. So either the windmills at Arie de Kok has to be expanded. We can look at grid load optimization for when is electricity used on the island and when is there a surplus of electricity, say from solar power or because there's a lot of wind. How can we use batteries to make it work better? And I think especially dehumidification, all the plants evaporate for driving the growth system. So if we have to take out the moisture, we must do it in the right way and just take out the moisture and not cooling down the facility when necessary. So that's quite something that's interested. Well, the other end, adaptive technology for what works on an island, what works in the tropics compared to where I live, where it's a rain season and it's a dry season where it also rains. And so adapt technology and buffers for heat and cold. So when available, when the grid is in low use, store as much as you can for later reuse, so to say. See that when it rains, that you can do some rainwater capture, and smart water use is key from all ends. And what you see on the right-hand side in the lower corner is how growers use water in the greenhouse industry now. So there's water coming in, it's pre-treated, fertilizer is added, and it stays in the loop with rainwater recycling and UV disinfection to make it work. So there's more crop per drop. We try to work it that way, that all the water that leaves the facility is only in a product, which is quite a challenge, of course, but with indoor growing, it can be done. Looking at food production, and I remember talking to a lady from the Dutch consulate or whatever it's called on Curacao. She was growing tomatoes in the porch. I showed this graph. She said, yeah, I'm growing tomatoes in the porch, but they need 10 liters of water every night. And that's expensive water on the islands, of course. And when you look at the graph on the left-hand side, so that's what we are at. It costs in the blue bars, say 100 to 300 liters of water to produce 1 kilogram of tomato. Looking at a fully closed greenhouse, or for that end, even vertical farm, you go as low as 4 liters per kilogram. And on top of that, production per square meter, which is key in a country like the Netherlands with its heavy land use, so to say, but also on islands where you want to have a lot of room for tourism and recreation. The tomato production, which is sort of a benchmark in kilograms per square meter, can be so much higher. And on top of that, you need less crop protection, less chemicals, because you keep the pests out instead of killing them when they enter. In terms of controlling, It's not just climate control, but we found out, and I'm not going to do this in detail, but we found out by smart controls, we could establish quite a water saving in California for the strawberry growers. And on top of that, also gave them an increase in production because the quality was better, the roots developed better. And when the weather changed quite suddenly due to wind changes, and the dry wind started to blow, the system saw that instead of reacting far too late, and we could benefit from a good control system and had 30% more production in that end compared to the normally hand controlled irrigation systems. What's the next big thing? I think that tying in with what NASA or the European Space Agency do in terms of research and growing in space, it's something that might be very interesting from an academical level. We team up with the German Society for that and looking for what's going on in Canada. It's adapted technology for completely closed loop growing. When you're on Mars, you cannot fly home to get some more water. So it must be self-sustaining in all different types of ways. And even then, the pictures I took at Houston at Johnson Space Center, farmers are wanted in space as well. So I think the opportunities are abundant in markets, in CSR, and also in all types of spin-offs. So I think there are options abundant on the island. And I did not touch so much on the economics because I'm not an econometrist, but I think it's quite a challenge. It's also very interesting to go there. And the final remark I want to make is whatever you do in Aruba, and it's more in general, instead of doing something with deep sea water cooling or whatever, when you do something that's more specific or less specific, more generic for small island states, it's knowledge you can export. It's a growing market for us, but also for the people living on the islands and grow their own food on board, so to say. So it was maybe a rush. I'm not so sure, but thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Westra, for that presentation. We've gotten some questions in. People are excited and very great to hear about these new innovations in agriculture. Given what you've told us today, what would you say you would predict will happen to agriculture within the next 5 to 10 years?
I just switch off one of the very much. Yeah, there we are. I think what we see is I have to close my eyes to think of better, but it's data-driven growing. Although data-driven growing has quite some challenges because in a greenhouse, what's data-driven? So and how much data is available when you go into a greenhouse? So what we see is that the next thing in a greenhouse will be that the grower will have more models, plant-based models, smarter models in how to control irrigation, how to control the growth, and optimize control in that end. The other one is, and that's quite a challenge for now, that a lot of research is done in how can we get more information for what's going on in a greenhouse in terms of relative humidity, CO2 distribution. It's data-driven growing with all the drawbacks that come because it's not always big data. Model-based growing for more data available because sensors get cheaper. And the other end is, and it's quite a long-term goal, I think, is in genetics. Talking to seed companies in the Netherlands, but also abroad, there's a lot of interest in growing varieties that are not working so well in the Dutch situation, but are working very well in an indoor farm, for example, or have their own specifics for the 12-hour light, 12-hour darkness. in different regions, because the greenhouse industry and growing industry is moving that way.
That's great to hear, and I think what you say is correct. Having the data-driven models will be a challenge. I think it's also probably you have to gather data in every one of your own, let's say the farmings that you have, because it will be different, and then it's a different environment. Having to grow in Aruba, having to grow in Netherlands, probably this will change the models as well. If we think about some of the ways that agricultural innovation is expanding and where you think it's going, would you say that it's possible for Aruba to to what extent can Aruba become less dependable on imports for agricultural products?
Yeah, I think the focus mainly must be on fresh food, because growing potatoes on the island or growing rice on the island might seem nice, but it's a harder challenge, I think. I know that several countries, and that's also has like Singapore, which is exactly on the equator, so to say, and heavily populated, of course. They aim at 40% resilience, 40% of the fresh food grown within the country/city. So that might be an option. And of course, there are always challenges in terms of energy and water use and water reuse, but I think it's a big hairy goal maybe, but I think that's quite an option that's reachable.
Okay, thank you for that answer. And you just mentioned again, and you mentioned it in your presentation, that we do have a higher cost of water and the utilities overall on Aruba. How would you say that your installations, your systems would help in this case? Are we looking at a possible reduction of, because I would assume it would increase the efficiency in which you use water. So how does that work?
Yeah, well, one thing is what I saw in Aruba at Happy Ponics. I'm not sure if they're still around, but they do not grow in the soil, but in gutters. And the gutters are closed as well. So all the water that goes to the roots is water that stays in the root zone instead of evaporating. That can help a lot. Of course, they're still growing in netted shade houses, so to say, so to keep out the pests. And the next challenge will be how can we capture the water that's evaporated by the plants and recirculate that in the system as well. So that might be one. And I did not check the precipitation on Aruba. Being there once and everything was flooding, I thought, well, this is just once in a year, maybe, or even less. So I'm always discussing with people, well, on the islands, when on the islands, is it valuable to save rainwater, to capture rainwater instead of having it flushed to the ocean as fast as possible. So smarter growing systems, smarter ways of keeping water where it needs to be at the roots, and when it evaporates, try to capture it again in a specific environment, so to say. On top of that, I remember talking to some growers on the island, actually, that we can do some, we did a test, let's say it that way. We did a test in my region where we captured sewage water, treated that in terms of removing E. coli, doing UV disinfection, doing some more smart things to get rid of the hormones that might be there, or all the leftovers from, and then use the phosphate, use the nitrate, and everything that's in the sewage water that comes from, say from the cruise ships, that comes from the housing and so on, so that we can recirculate that part as well. And of course that needs work, but especially when it's sort of compacted in a certain way, then it's easier to do it than in a more suburban area where we live, where I live now, where the density is low, so it's harder to capture all the sewage water. So that's there are some, and it needs research, but I think together with SISSTEM, together with the research that's going on in for space, that might be an option as well.
All right. Thank you for that. And Mr. Westra, I have another question here from a viewer who asks, do you feel that we have the knowledge locally to build and exploit high green tech houses or controlled environments for growing plants? If not, how do we acquire that knowledge?
Yeah. I'm not sure if the knowledge is there yet, but like I said in the beginning of my presentation, I'm very sure that the whole infrastructure in terms of knowledge on Aruba, like Santa Rosa and University of Aruba, but also of Curacao, are equipped to not only to acquire the knowledge and to capture it, but also to bring that to the people on the island and make it work for them. So that's I think it's more how can we build the infrastructure to do the tests and to do the adaptation to the specifics of the climate on the islands or on Aruba. But no, I'm quite sure that in terms of knowledge transfer, it's more of taking some time and simply start doing that. So through e-learning and sending interns to specific growers and make it work. So it's and on top of that, not all the very, very specific knowledge has to be on the island as well, because the community I live in has the same number of people living here as on Aruba. Only I think a quarter of the area is greenhouse, and it's not that all the people work in the greenhouse, but they fly the world and tell people how to do so, and therefore the very specific. So the bread and butter work is quite easy, and then step by step you can teach people how to do so. And we have much more, like we learned now with the COVID-19, much more tools to have remote assistance, to have e-learning and everything around it. So the world shrunk again for a lot of people from that end.
Thank you.
So
Yes,
yeah.
no, and to add to that as well, I think with the previous presentation that we had from Mr. Erik, he also told us about programs they have at the University of Aruba in agriculture. So I'm also hopeful that we will get there. And it's also always great to collaborate. I think that's the best way to learn, actually. And Mr. Westra, maybe one of the final questions. What would you say are some of the ways that agricultural innovation is making a difference in the world?
Well, sure. It makes a difference. Every presentation, and I never do so, but every presentation on a conference starts with we're expecting to have 9 billion people on the planet in 2050. We need to feed them, so we need innovations to make it work. So that's I think there's a lot of money, also Dutch governmental money going into innovation. We simply have to innovate, or we will run out of land, or we will run out of water, or we will run out of fertilizer, and so there's quite some. There are challenges, but I think that knowledge is there to implement that in the long run.
Yeah, I would say it's also innovation in agriculture is very much needed moving forward, and if you want to make the best use of our land as well.
See in the technical societies in medieval times, I don't know how many people were in farming, and now it's just 4% in some countries, for example.
Yeah, and as the last question, Mr. Westra, are you looking for, because this is an investment summit, right? So I'm looking to ask, are you looking for partners or to do something on Aruba? What is your vision in that?
Yeah, we ourselves are more a supplier of technology, but being a family-owned company with a goal that goes beyond making money, so to say, because the founder, well, he is 86 now. He is working on greenhouses on Haiti, for example, from his own foundation. And so what we therefore I went to Curacao, I went to Aruba 3 times to see how can we forward the greenhouse industry on the island. And for me also, investors can be there because the cruise ships start coming again with a demand for food. So the market is definitely there, and for us, because visiting Aruba, well, we can sell some computers, some water treatment units. That's it. But what works on Aruba, especially when you look for the more generic technology, you can export all over the Caribbean and look to other parts of the world as well. So therefore, investing in Aruba is not just investing in Aruba and growing lettuce on the island, but also investing in more a long run for what do you call it, a reproducible business model, so to say. You can multiply it. It's not just this one. It's not just, well, that sounds too rude, but it's not just Aruba, but imagine all the other islands. And especially islands where people live with more money. Well, the Cayman Islands and people, well, they have the same issues, I think. And we are establishing some projects in the long run on Hawaii even to make that work. So I would say the market is there due to tourism, due to the local community. I was amazed at the way it worked in Aruba and the cleanliness of everything. And so I think it's when you start on Aruba, you have a market. It will be a viable business case when you look at the right size instead of overstretching it. But also from there you can move on.
Yes, definitely. I think thank you for saying that, because I also like to tell people a lot of times that your market can be so much bigger. We don't have to think about like you say just Aruba. You can invest for more than that and scale up, definitely, especially with new innovations allowing for more efficient use of space. Mr. Westra, I would really like to thank you for being with us today and also being patient with us running a little bit late today. I wish you a pleasant evening in the Netherlands, and we hope to hear from you again soon.
Okay, yeah, thank you very much.
So I would also like to thank all our attendees for being with us today. I've just heard that the roundtable sessions are canceled for today, but they will resume tomorrow. So please join us tomorrow for that portion. Yesterday, we asked you how you thought the summit went, and most of you said very good or good. Today, we have a poll again. Please let us know what you think, and we will recap on this poll again tomorrow, as it is important feedback for us as well as organizers and how we're doing with the summit. Tomorrow we will have a keynote speech from Mr. Brad Sugars, the #1 business coach in the world and a top executive, and a top executive of Aruba, Remco van der Veld. Also managing director of Royal Aruba Alue, and they will be sharing more information in their internationalization strategy. So please join us tomorrow. It will be a great day. And I would like to thank our sponsors for their contributions to their event: Action Coach, Elite, GDP Digital, and Cetar Envy. I'll remind you once more that you can sign up for the one-on-one sessions for Thursday and Friday with Arina between 9 a.m. and 3 p.m. It will take about 30 minutes. Thank you for being with us today, and we see you tomorrow.